It's just after midnight. The house is quiet. The baby's asleep, and so is the baby's mom, Ellen, because that's what you do when you have a 4-month-old. You sleep whenever you can. You've earned that sleep. It's precious and sacred, and you protect it. So when a beeping sound pulls her out of her sleep, the first thought is CO2 detector. Annoying, but fine. She lies there for a second, decides she's going to deal with it in the morning, and that is when she hears a voice coming from upstairs, from the baby's room. It's not the CO2 detector. It's a man. And he's saying things to her 4-month-old that I can't repeat on this channel. Ellen shakes her husband Nathan awake. They turn on the bedroom light, and the camera that was off in their own room, it switches on. And the same voice tells them very calmly, turn the light off. And then he says, I'm going to kidnap your baby. I'm in your baby's room. Nathan runs upstairs. The baby is fine. There's nobody there because the man was never in the house. He was in the camera. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to my channel. You might know me from my true crime channel here on YouTube, Kimbyrleigha. I am Kimbyrleigha, or Kimbyr, and this is Candidly Kimbyr. And on this channel, we'll be diving into some of the most creepy and interesting real life stories from around the web, usually from one of my favorite places, which is Reddit. And today we're going to be talking about baby monitors, smart cameras, the little devices we bring into our home specifically because we want to feel safe. But what happens when someone else figures out they can use those devices to get inside? First, I want to share the Reddit post that inspired this video. Many are just short, to the point, but they're still horrifying. And then we have 4 cases, 4 families, 4 different states, different cameras, different years, but the same horrible realization. And by the end of this video, you're going to understand exactly how this happens. And it's not complicated, which is maybe the most disturbing part. So let's go. I stumbled upon this post on Reddit entitled Man Talking to My Daughter Through Owlet. And we have an Owlet baby sock, but we don't use it anymore. But it caught my interest since it's the same brand. The post read, tonight I discovered a man talking to my daughter through her camera. We have an Owlet camera over her bed since she was a baby. But when we converted her crib into a bed, we installed a Ring camera so we can see her entire room. Well, tonight I was in the living room and heard my daughter shouting, no, stop, go away. So I checked the Ring camera and looked back. Sure enough, a man's voice came over the Owlet camera saying, what's up, little girl? I've never ran into a room so fast in my life. I unplugged her camera and her brother's camera right after. I called the non-emergency line in my area and I reported it. But all in all, I feel so sick. I feel so violated. I'll never buy a Wi-Fi camera again. I feel like I failed in keeping my daughter safe. I'm so worried at how this will affect her. Okay, so now you see why this is scary, or at least you should think it's scary. One commenter said, yeah, this is the main reason anytime I've bought a camera, it's just an old school non-Wi-Fi one. I've heard this happening so much and people constantly changing passwords. Another said, I wasn't sure if I was paranoid, but this is the reason I didn't get a Wi-Fi camera. Glad you were able to catch that happening and disconnect them. Who knew? This is a new fear unlocked for me. Here we are trying to protect our babies by keeping an eye on them, and we find out someone else is too. Okay, when I went down the rabbit hole, I saw this next post asking, has anyone ever had their baby monitor hacked? So of course I wanted to know because I use baby cameras. They said our baby monitor was hacked at 3 a.m. this morning. My son woke up screaming, saying a woman was talking to him through the camera, saying, get up, get up. We just moved to a new neighborhood not even 5 days ago, and our internet isn't even hooked up yet. So I'm awake and completely freaked out. What should I do? Has anyone ever had this happen before? I unplugged the monitor. Should I file a police report? Now, wow, I think I would. And the top comment explained, unfortunately, with no security or encryption, assuming none due to the mention of the internet not even being hooked up, these monitors are very easy to hack. Second most hacked are Wi-Fi monitors with limited security, no FMA, and encryption. Even those with encryption say 128 Owlet versus a 256 Nanit. Owlet was hacked more. Third, even with the highest level of security enabled, if the surrounding network environment is weak, bad actors can often infiltrate the monitor by compromising a different device on the same network. All this is to say, file a police report for documentation. They likely won't be much help to solve this in this instance. Consider the baby monitor being used and if there are any available security measures you can take. Also, notify the company that manufactured your particular baby monitor that was compromised. Right. But that doesn't make me feel any safer. I mean, would you feel safe knowing that even her Wi-Fi wasn't connected, but somehow the monitor itself could be hacked? Now, this last Reddit post made me want to find out if there were any other stories like this out there in the news. This one was from Keen Turtle 19. She said, "So my baby monitor was hacked." Now, I'm going to paraphrase some of this. She's a stay-at-home mom with an infant. Her husband's working. It's around 6:30 p.m. She puts her baby in the crib. She's doing things around the house. And then she hears noises coming from the monitor. She said, "Time goes on. I get my stuff done. And little man wakes up around 11:30 like usual for a nighttime bottle. I'm in the bedroom in almost total dark, except for my hatch light that's on 1% and my phone that I'm browsing Reddit on. Now, the monitor I have is a VTech Wi-Fi VM901, and that model always flashes a green light. But I look up and notice a red light slowly blinking. What the F? Obviously, it just got unplugged and the backup battery is dying. But this model doesn't have a battery like that. So I quickly Googled my model and LED meanings, and it turns out that a red light means someone is effing live streaming from the main parent device. But wait, I'm in the bedroom, husband's at work, and unless my dogs have mastered technology without me looking, I'm being watched in my bedroom that I share with my 5-month-old. I'm stuck, frozen and afraid like a effing deer in the headlights. Logically, I know that nobody is in the room with me, but someone is still in the room with me through the camera. I could speak and tell them to politely F off, but I was too scared to have someone respond. LOL. I mean, to me, this is no laughing matter, but I understand that when people are anxious and they realize that something like this happened, humor is sometimes the only thing they can do to laugh. She said, "The light quickly goes back to green. So I'm hoping he finishes the bottle so I can lay him down and unplug it. Minute or two later, it's streaming again. Super spooked, but also pissed. So I carefully stand up and walk across the room and unplug it. When I unplug it, I can see up close. They moved the camera to face the bed we were sitting on too. Now backpedal to October when we got it. One night after he was down, I went to Kroger while my husband was home with him. On the way back, I stopped by my dad, who lives locally, and show him how cool it is that I can check on my little nugget while he sleeps. I pull up the app, and the camera is panning the room and zooms in on his crib. LOL, husband is getting camera at the right angle, so I decide to mess with him, and I move it too. But guess what? I mentioned that incident to my husband this morning. He never moved it like that before. So riddle me this. Why are these companies like VTech not doing anything or even letting consumers know how easily the device can be hacked into? Aside from all the times I changed my son in there and changed my own clothes, I learned that if someone gets into the monitor and it's hooked up to your home Wi-Fi, they can then get into devices on that network. I'm not even sure where to start in processing all this mentally and how to fix the tech side. I just wanted to share this quite long story to let people know it can happen. Please check your settings. Read how to protect yourself. People are disgusting humans sometimes. Yikes. Now you can see how creepy this is. And this brings me to the stories that I found from least to most horrifying. I mean, they're all scary. The first one is out of Houston, Texas. It's Ellen and Nathan Rigney. I actually told you about them in the intro. It was December of 2018. The Rigney family, Ellen, Nathan, and their 4-month-old son, Topper, live in the Memorial area. It's a nice neighborhood. They've set up a network of Wi-Fi connected cameras throughout their home as a baby monitoring system, multiple cameras. They wanted total coverage, peace of mind. You know how it is when you have a brand new baby. You want to see them all the time, always. The cameras are Nest cameras. Good cameras, not cheap cameras. The kind of cameras where you look at the price and you think, okay, this is a serious option. We're being responsible adults about this. Those are the type. And I used to have the same ones. It's just before midnight on a Monday when everything goes wrong. Ellen wakes up to beeping. She assumes it's a CO2 alert. She lies there. And then the voice starts in Topper's room upstairs. A male speaking explicit content that she describes as sexual expletives. Her words, not mine. She gets Nathan up. They turn on the bedroom light. And the camera that had been off in their own bedroom, that neither one of them turned on, switches on. And the voice tells them to turn the light off. So now they know, whoever this is, they're watching in real time through both cameras at the same time. And then they say, I'm going to kidnap your baby. I'm in your baby's room. The husband sprints upstairs. Topper is fine, safe in his crib, completely unaware that a stranger just used him as a pawn to terrorize his parents. Nathan runs back downstairs. They yank the Wi-Fi, they kill the cameras, and they call the police, specifically the local police office. And after this, the Rigneys switch to a closed-circuit camera system, not connected to the internet, not connected to anything outside their four walls. They're done with Wi-Fi cameras entirely. So how does this happen? Nest replies that they'd seen cases where customers used passwords that had been exposed in other data breaches on completely unrelated websites, and that those same username and password combinations were being used to log into their Nest accounts. This is called credential stuffing, and it's exactly as low effort as it really sounds. You don't need to hack Nest. You don't need to breach their servers. You just need a list of stolen passwords and some other breach like LinkedIn, Adobe, some random gaming site from, 2014. And you just try them automatically at scale because a lot of people reuse passwords, so this tends to work. A security expert quoted in the very same story described it as basically an opportunist. Bad actors scanning for whatever they can find, which honestly is its own type of terrifying. This wasn't personal. Nobody was targeted in the Rigneys specifically. They were just findable, as Nest wants to put it. And Nest said they were rolling out measures to block compromised passwords and encourage two-factor authentication, which is great. That's genuinely great. But also, a man had already told a mother he was going to kidnap her infant. So maybe the timing on that rollout could have been a little bit earlier. No suspect was ever publicly named in connection with this specific family. The investigation outcome isn't even on record, which means whoever was on the other side of the camera just remains out there somewhere. So that's Houston. But here's the thing. Houston is almost the polite version of what happened in Illinois. Yeah. Case number 2 is Lake Barrington, Illinois. Arjun and Jessica Sudd live in Lake Barrington, a suburb northwest of Chicago. They have a 7-month-old son named Oliver. And they have, brace yourself, 16 cameras and 2 smart thermostats throughout their entire house. About $4,000 worth of Nest equipment. We're talking about Nest again. Now, I don't say this to judge them. They clearly took home security very seriously. They wanted every angle covered, which I said a lot of parents do, especially if it's their first baby or just the fact they have a baby. They wanted to know what was happening in every room at their house at all times. What they did not want was someone else to have access to the same cameras. Arjun is walking towards the baby's room when he hears it. A deep male's voice talking to his son Oliver. His first thought, which was genuine, is that maybe it's some kind of interference with the baby monitor, like maybe a neighbor's audio is kind of bleeding through somewhere. And that is how badly our brains do not want to process what we're actually hearing. He keeps listening, and then the voice starts coming from a different camera. It's downstairs, following him. The stranger can see Arjun moving through his own house, and he's tracking him room by room through a 16-camera system that Arjun installed and paid for himself. The voice starts hurling obscenities, racial slurs, and they recorded part of this.
What's that?
And then something's going on with the thermostat. It gets changed to 90 degrees. 90 degrees. There's an infant in this house. The stranger knew exactly where that infant was. Here's what Arjun said about this. He said, they messed with our thermostat. Who does that? Who does that? It's the most reasonable question that anyone has ever asked because Arjun said his blood ran cold. He described it as terrifying. And his wife, Jessica, said the same. They unplugged every interior camera. They called the police. They called Nest. They called customer service and told them, here is what we have. Unique passwords, two-factor authentication, and then Google, which is Nest's parent company if you didn't know, issued a statement saying their system was not breached, that these incidents were the result of customers using passwords that have been compromised on other websites. Have we heard this before? Yes, we have. But this father said these were unique. And also, I just want you to sit with this for a second. The solution to a stranger that entered your home through your 16 cameras and turned on your thermostat to 90 degrees near your infant is being framed as, oh, well, yeah, your unique password, it should have been better. I understand why the company said this, and I understand that it's technically accurate. It just feels insufficient. This family said they wanted to return all $4,000 worth of equipment, and honestly, that's fair. In Houston, the stranger made threats. In Illinois, the stranger made things interactive. They followed this father through his own home, room to room, in real time. And in Seattle, the stranger was quieter, and somehow that was worse. The third case, Seattle, Washington. Joe and John, their parents, and they asked the media not to use their last name, so we won't. And they have a 3-year-old daughter. It's November of 2019. Their daughter's upstairs, they're downstairs. It's a standard evening, the kind where nothing is supposed to happen. And their camera is a Freddy Tao Coco. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, but it's manufactured in China. It costs about $50, and they actually received it as a baby shower gift. But here's where I need to pause, because this detail actually matters a lot, because before this incident, the foundation, the nonprofit that makes Firefox, I think it's called Mozilla, they had already reviewed this exact product line as part of their privacy not included guide. And their rating was super creepy. Their findings were that this device shipped with a default password. It was 123. No encryption, no privacy policy they could locate. 123. That was the password out of the box. Now, the company specifically said it failed their minimum security standards, and this report existed before the Seattle incident, which means the information was there, the warnings were there, but the product was still on shelves, still being gifted as baby shower gifts, still sitting in children's bedrooms connected to the internet with password 123, not changed. And I know what you might be thinking. Well, that wasn't smart. Why not make a different password? And I understand your thoughts. But let's try to think with a little compassion. Not everyone knows. Not everyone realizes they might have thought that was the one it came with for a reason. So these parents hear their daughter calling from upstairs. Jo goes up, and her daughter tells her, there's a voice talking to me. So of course this mother is confused. I mean, kids do say weird things, but she was like, what do you mean there's a voice talking to you? And this little girl responds, the voice that says, Jaden, I love you. Her mother's response in her words was
instantly wanted to throw up. My heart was in my throat.
She was like, what? At first, Jo was like, wait, it's probably just the neighbors that my daughter's hearing. So she tries to reason with her. But this 3-year-old says, no, it's coming from there. And she pointed right at the camera. A stranger's voice was coming from their daughter's bedroom camera. And the stranger knows this little girl's name, which doesn't stop there. The parents also noticed the camera had physically moved, meaning the angle of the lens had shifted away from the crib and up towards the rest of the room without anyone in the house touching it. The camera was being remotely controlled. Someone was adjusting it to get a better view. Now, John's mother, the husband's mother, had been in the house a week before this, and she mentions afterward that she too heard an unfamiliar voice coming from upstairs. She hadn't said anything. Because what do you even say? How does this even occur to you as a possibility that it could be coming from a camera? So they unplug it immediately. They call the police. They actually call the FBI. And the FBI's involvement wasn't confirmed in any of the public reports I read, but the family said they made that report. And I want to come back to this. It's a $50 camera. Default password 123, sold as a gift, connected to Wi-Fi, pointed at a child, and accessible, apparently to anyone who looked for it, because the password's so easy. So far, we have a kidnapping threat. We have a thermostat that's, being torturously turned up really high. We have a stranger whispering to a child with the child's name in the dark. What could possibly be worse? Well, in Kentucky in 2014, the camera starts moving on its own, and the stranger starts screaming at the baby. The final case, number 4, is from Hebron, Kentucky. It's about Heather and Adam Schreck. It's 2014. And this is the earliest case we're covering today, and it's important because it does show that this has been going on for quite some time, and the warnings have been there, yet it was still happening years later. So Heather and Adam have lived in this area near Cincinnati. Their daughter Emma is 10 months old at the time, and it's midnight when Heather wakes up to a man's voice. Their camera is a Foscam IP camera. They're using it as a baby monitor. I'm sure you've seen these before. They kind of look like CCTV cameras. But Heather wakes up. She hears the voice. She grabs her phone. She pulls up the camera feed, and she can see the camera physically moving. It's panning on its own, like we heard in other cases, because she's not doing it. Someone else is. And then she hears the stranger screaming at her daughter, "Wake up, baby! Wake up, baby!" Her husband, Adam, runs into the room, and here's the part that really stuck with me. The camera then turned towards him. Someone was sitting there, someone at maybe their computer, watching Adam run in, and then was manually rotating the camera to follow this man. And then they start screaming things at him too. Adam unplugs the camera, and Heather's quote after this was, "You do kind of feel violated in a way." And yes, I think that's one word for it. And then she said,
"Just absolutely shocked to see that somebody could get into my house that easily."
And here's what makes this case so significant. Reporting confirmed that the specific camera model had a known firmware vulnerability. Now, a patch existed. An update was available, but Heather and Adam had no idea because nobody told them. And they had no reason to go looking for this patch. A security expert was quoted in reference to this case, and he said cameras like these are an easy entry point. And not just to the camera. Once you're inside a networked device, you can be inside the entire broader home network. We talked about this, but everything that's connected to that router becomes in question. Industry coverage treated this incident as part of a documented growing pattern, not a freak accident, but this is a pattern. This is 4 families just in this video, 4 different states, and the same exact pivot point in every single story, a voice somewhere it shouldn't be. And the family realized this device isn't just watching, it's present, it's interactive, and someone has turned the baby monitor into a two-way portal into the most private space in their house. That's the real horror here. The intruder doesn't even have to break in. They don't have to be anywhere near you. They could be in another country, in their pajamas, at a keyboard, but they're also in your baby's room. The cases I just covered today split into 2 technical buckets, if you will. One bucket is credential stuffing that we talked about in Houston, Illinois. Good cameras, but the accounts controlling them were accessed using passwords that were stolen from, of course, other breaches, as Ness put it. The cameras themselves were fine. The passwords were the problem. And the other bucket is device level vulnerabilities. Seattle, Kentucky, okay, they're cheap, or they're not governed properly with the right hardware. They have leaks. Whether that's a factory password of 123 or known firmware holes that nobody actually patched. No account to compromise, just walk right through. From the outside, both look identical. A stranger's voice in your child's room. But the fix is different depending on which failure you're looking at, which is part of why this is such a persistent problem. Families don't know which bucket they're in. Every company in these stories eventually said some version of just change your password, get two-factor, upgrade your cameras. And that's valid. They genuinely could do that. But there's also a gap between here's what you should have done and we're going to make it impossible for people to do this to your device without you having to do those things first. What I did some research on was that 123 password, and I found out that most consumer devices don't force you to change the default password. Most of them don't even require you to have two-factor authentication. And most of them won't even alert you when your firmware is out of date. The Shrek family didn't know their camera had a patch. That's not negligence. That's just how this product was sold. And here's what I keep thinking about. Every single one of these families bought a camera because they wanted to feel safe. That's the only reason. They wanted to see their baby. They wanted to know everything was okay. And someone used exactly that to get inside. And in most of these cases, nobody was ever caught. Nobody was publicly charged, at least, in what I read. And the families just had to move on. They had to switch to offline systems or file police reports that went nowhere. And whoever was on that other end just logged off. So if you have a smart camera in your house right now, and there's a very real chance that you do, the short version of what to do is to change your default password if you haven't. Don't ever reuse a password that you've used anywhere else. Turn on two-factor and check if there is an update to your firmware. It's not that complicated, I know, but you have to do that because I want something to come out of the cases we read about. And I did all of that when I started going down this rabbit hole. But that's it. That's all I have for you today. These cases genuinely made me feel so concerned. But I also want you to know, I hope that you find this useful. I know it's deeply uncomfortable to think about, but it happened and it can happen to you. And before you go, just one more thing. If you're new here or you haven't yet subscribed to this channel, I cover tons of stories like this every week. And I also will put links to my sources in the description box. Stay safe, change your passwords, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye.